では、日本人の祖先はアフリカからどのようにして日本列島にやってきたのでしょうか。私たちの祖先の一部は中近東を経てヨーロッパに渡る集団と分かれアジアに移動しました。人々は移り住んだ土地の環境によって白人、黒人、黄色人種という特徴を獲得していきました。気候風土の違いの大きいアジア大陸ではモンゴロイドも多様に変化していきました。その中に1万2000年前に日本列島に移動し縄文の文化を築いた集団がいた。
A lot of Native Americans are the ones that they're counting as black folks too. A lot of Native Americans are the ones that they're counting as black folks too. A lot of Native Americans are the ones that they're counting as black folks too.
But let's watch this short interview with the senator, and let's see how he tries to explain away his embarrassment at having admitted that we see Aboriginal natives of these Americas.
When I was reading to prepare for this interview, I was quite surprised to see you use the word Aborigines talking about African Americans.
During the Ice Age, 12,000 years ago, there was a land bridge between Siberia and Alaska. Mongoloid peoples were the first to enter the New World, or so experts thought. The Brazilian finds point to a very different story of the discovery of the Americas. The paintings on these rock shelters are much older than the Indians. The Brazilian finds show that the New World was discovered tens of thousands of years earlier than previously believed, certainly well before the time of the American Indians. But who were these pioneers? A much earlier wave of Mongoloids, or another race altogether, or another race altogether, or another race altogether? Clues to the identity of the first Americans are emerging in rock shelters in the northeast and southeast of Brazil. Archaeologists there have recently unearthed human remains. Prehistoric skulls were found buried in layers of soil 9 to 12,000 years old. They are the oldest skulls in the Americas. And this is the oldest of them all. The skull of a young woman nicknamed Luthia by scientists. Walter Neves is a physical anthropologist at Sao Paulo University in Brazil. He has been using a standard and reliable archaeological measure, the shape of the skull, to find out what race she belonged to.
91.
He fully expected Luthia to be a Mongoloid, an ancestor of the American Indians.
91.
But then he fed the measurements into the computer.
When we start running the computer and seeing the results, it was amazing because we realized that the statistics, the quantitative analysis we were doing was not showing these people to be Mongoloid. In fact, the analysis was showing these people was anything except Mongoloid.
So who was Luthia? And where did she come from? To find out, the skull was taken to a hospital in Rio de Janeiro to begin the process of reconstructing her face. The cast was then given to Richard Neve of the University of Manchester in England, one of the world's leading forensic artists, to recreate her features.
That, to me, is a Negroid face that has all the features you associate with a Negroid face. The proportions of the face, it doesn't say anything about it being a Mongoloid.
The chapel is dedicated to Santa Maria de los Buenos Aires. Saint Mary of the Good Winds was the patron saint of navigators and a favorite of Columbus. This altar painting dates from shortly after Columbus died and features what's considered the first and most accurate portrait of the great explorer on the left. It's also thought to be the first painting of Indians done in Europe. The Virgin's cape seems to protect everyone under it, even the Indians.
Of the first known modern European.
It's got features which could go in any direction. It could become Negroid, it could become Southeast Asian, it could become European.
It's made this in clay and that's why it's brown, but
yes,
in fact it's very likely that these earliest of Europeans were quite dark skinned, much darker skinned.
But yeah, at one point the whole world was black. And you had a whole population of people that lived, but then there was a flood. Everything was wiped out. Now, mind you, even though the flood happened, remains, bones, those things were still left here on the earth, And as you travel throughout the world, what you'll find is there are black people all over the world. The indigenous Americans were not the Mongolian or Asian peoples. They were African people. They were a black people. The indigenous Hawaiians, the indigenous islanders, the indigenous aborigines, the indigenous peoples of all the world, even in Asian lands, the Chinese, the Japanese, these were all black people. So there's proof and evidence of who we are all around the world, all the way down to South America. Again, it was not the what we would call Native Americans today, which those Native Americans that we view today, those are Asiatic peoples, and the original natives of the land were American people. Anyway, all we know is that the world, things happened to them. A lot of those people were killed off, genocides, things like that. When, I don't really have all the dates, but trust me, it's all out there. You can look it up, but that information is out there. But Were those the people prior to the flood, after the flood? I'm not certain, but I do know that at one point everybody in the world was black, you know, and whatever happened, we things started to change. But again, that too is another video. But what I will say is that people spread out. They evolved, they lived in different lands and became, you know, started speaking their own languages and, you know, and so forth, so on and so forth. So in that process, there were races that, the European race, actually that is a very new race, believe it or not. Europeans are a very young race of people. Majority of the world was dark, majority of the world was what you would call black. So what we're going to get into is looking at the so-called black people, because when people think of black, you think of the Negroid, and the Negroid is identified through the nose that we have, usually flat or very strong nose, and then there's our hair. That's what makes the Negroid very distinctive, is that woolly textured hair, you know. And then, of course, the dark complexion of our skin, of our people. We are a melanated people. But even though these are characteristics of the Negroid, we are not the only stock of black people. We are not the only stock of black people. Because when you look at the sons of Ham, which are the Egyptians, the Ethiopians, the Eritreans, they are a black people as well. This is why there's always this debate on whether or not West Africans, which are your Negroids, and your East Africans, which they're usually referring to the Egyptians.
Egyptians are black. The real Egyptians are black because the real Egyptians, they are real Africans. So those people in Lower Egypt you see in Cairo, Alexandria, and the Falahins area, they were mixed between the Turkish, Mamluks, French, English, Romans. So those people who come to attack Egypt in that time, they couldn't come to Upper Egypt, to the south, which we still have the same color, our dark color or black color. So they couldn't mix with us.
Next question. Okay, what question?
أصليين اللي هم السمر. إنما البيض اللي كلهم you see, I explained to him about the Nubians and the Egyptians. They were not white. They are black Africans. So he say now, ليه هنا الناس لسه سمر في الصعيد وفي بحري بيض.
بحري دولة مش أصلا مش أساس مصر برضه.
He said the people in Lower Egypt, most of them they are not Egyptians. They are Greeks, Francois.
This is why there's always this debate on whether or not West Africans, which are your Negroids, and your East Africans, which they're usually referring to the Egyptians, Somalians, the Ethiopians, so forth. They're comparing the two. And they always try to say, well, they're not really black, because of course in our vocabulary and in our world, the term black is always a bad thing. It's a negative thing. So when it's expressed that someone is black, it's expected that they are Negroid, that they have woolly hair, that they have a broad flat nose, that they have thick lips, that they have different bone structure, a more thicker bone structure. You know, that's what they're referring to, you know. And because you have a different, diverse group of Africans among the sons of Ham, they try to say, oh no, those aren't black people, because their noses are narrow, their lips are thinner, you know, their hair is straighter or silkier or curlier. And that's what I'm pointing out, is that the true sons of Ham, yes, they are black people, but no, they are not your Negroid people. But there is a misconception and misleading, but there is also a confusion. And this is an age-old biblical confusion, because I'm going to go through the Bible in my next video and point out that even the people in the Bible confuse the sons of Shem with the sons of Ham. And the sons of Ham are a black raced people. But the black people that these are usually a curlier hair. I mean, they do have textured hair like the Negroid black people, only these Hamitic black people can have pin straight hair. They can have wavy hair. They can have curly hair, and they can have the textured hair, you know. But their noses are commonly a lot more narrower, but their skin complexion is just the same color as ours, you know. Now, we being a melanated people, our complexion can range from various shades of brown, from a medium to light brown, all the way to a very dark, heavy, melanated brown, all of which are beautiful colors. And the similar thing is found among the Hamitic people, just like you find it among the Negroid people. The Hamitic people have textured hair. They have a darker skin as well. Their skin is usually a medium colored brown. So whenever people say the sons of Ham and they talk about them being black, yes, they are black, but they are not they are different. They are a different people. They are not the sons of Shem. They are not. They are the sons of Ham. But we look enough alike where I still get a little confused myself, because no other race of people. There may be people with dark skin, but again, that just proves that, you know, who were the first people on earth? You know, who were the first people? They were melanated, dark complected people. But yeah, we're the only race of people with hair like wool. You know, and so other races can try to join in and say, oh, well, we have woolly hair too, which is rare. You hardly ever hear any race claiming to have woolly hair, because that's associated with a negative attribute or feature. It's not deemed as beautiful or attractive. It's deemed as ugly, and it's usually despised, except when they're trying to claim to be along the bloodline of Jesus. Then all of a sudden they have quote unquote woolly hair. But, you know, for people who really do have woolly hair, that's an insult, because honestly, you know, the way woolly haired people, us Negroid black people, a lot of us have constantly battled with the texture of our hair, how people have hated our hair, and this is how we came up with terms within our community of good hair. You know, and good hair was anything from straight, wavy, or curly, you know, because that was something we just did not have. We couldn't put water in our hair and let it dry and have nice, pretty, flowing, springy curls, you know. Usually we had wool, you know, or usually the biracial child was always esteemed because of their pretty good hair. And so usually when you look at the opposite side, where you have the white race or where you have the Asian race of people, or not really Asian, well, not really Asian, but usually the white race, because they can have, you know, curly hair, or the biracial descendants. Those individuals, they'll try to claim, oh, well, I have woolly hair, but you don't. You don't. You can put water on your hair and it will turn into very admired curls that are just glorified and put on a pedestal, you know. But they consider that as having bad hair until they look at our hair, and our hair doesn't quite take on certain curl patterns. It kind of just has its own thing about it, you know. But ironically, and that's one thing that makes the Negroid people unique, is that hair. You know, so I just came on here to rant and basically say all that to say that we know that for the most part, these sons of Japheth are your European and Asian people. But the sons of Ham are a black people, the Hamitic people, but the black people, but they are black people with narrow noses. And yes, they do have more Caucasian-like features, but they are not the sons of Japheth. They are not the sons of Shem. They are the sons of Ham. They are a dark-complected race of people with a variety of hair textures from straight to curly, and melanated, dark-complected skin. So therefore, they do look a lot like African people. But that's why they're always being compared in contrast, because whether people realize that or not, there is a difference. People just can't quite understand it. They keep trying to group us together, but we're not. And then that leads me to my next point, because we can identify and pinpoint who the sons of Ham are. We can identify and pinpoint who the sons of Japheth are. Well then, the only other race left is the sons of Shem, the woolly-haired people, the descendants of Shem. And Negroid people don't fit into the box of Japheth because they're not European or Asian. And they don't fit into the box of the sons of Ham because, again, those are a distinctive race of people. But that's sons of Shem. Well, that's this process of elimination. So whenever people want to argue or, you know, express racist bias, and say, oh, well, you can't be the descendant of the children of Israel because you're a Negro, because you're black. Let's always keep in perspective that just by process of elimination, the only one that you come from is Shem, because you don't fit into the sons of Japheth, and you don't fit among the sons of Ham, even though there's a lot of similarity and confusion, which will be pointed out in the next video. But all right, thank you for listening to my rant. I'll talk to you later.